So, yeah, I said questionable. And the reason I'm mentioning questionable is because both these sides actually are coming into this game without necessarily their sort of first choice striker or a striker. Yeah. Obviously, with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, unfortunately, he's out with yet another injury, sadly. He's out for around 6 weeks. And Chelsea have not found a replacement for Romelu Lukaku.
Yeah.
Does that still make you wonder what's going on at Chelsea? Or is it that they're just putting all their eggs into one basket, maybe with Kai Havertz playing that false number 9?
Well, the only reason you could probably make a point of why they haven't signed a striker, do they believe that Kai Havertz can improve again? Because he improved last year from the season before, and can he become a more complete player? Now, only Thomas Tuchel really would have seen him enough to know whether he can do that job, or is there someone else needed to come into the football club? Look, they've signed a sort of striker in Sterling, but they definitely need centre forward without a doubt. I mean, both clubs today, I'm looking at the potential lineups, and Dele Alli looks like he could play up front for Everton down
so we
the
can
middle.
Have 2 false number 9s.
So you're 2 false number 9s in a game, and it's Chelsea have done some really interesting business, but have paid way over what I would imagine. Now, Cucurella is a great player; he's done brilliantly well. But if you look at from 17 million the year before and now it's 62.
It's incredible.
After a year. Well, Tony Bloom's the best negotiator in football, bar none.
Actually, you're probably right. And yet we don't talk about it. Isn't it like he's made about 150 million in the last few seasons from
he's
sales?
Ridiculous. Well, he was a poker player of years gone by, and the Lizard was his nickname. And I've said to you, look up at his poker earnings, and I don't think he's played a tournament for 10 years. Because I don't play the tournaments like I used to in poker, but he's made over 3 million for even from 10 years before without playing. He's an unbelievable negotiator for Brighton.
Yeah.
People will say Daniel Levy's one of the best out there. Tony Bloom doesn't say a thing. He never did at the table. He just doesn't really, get involved. He seems to know what he wants for Brighton and do, and he's got a top dollar price for a very good player. Let's not forget that he had a brilliant season. He
did, yeah.
It's a weird game because if I said to you who was Everton's player of the season last year, you'd go
Pickford, maybe,
without a doubt. Sorry. Now, if he doesn't have a good season, they're going to be in worse trouble than they were last year.
This is what David De Gea was saying, wasn't it? Not so long ago, because he's won a number of Player of the Season awards,
which is not a good thing.
Yeah, his point is, I shouldn't be winning these awards because that tells you the situation we're in, that you're relying on me to save games, and I can, absolutely, without Jordan Pickford,
brilliant last year for them.
He was fantastic. And we know Everton's struggles, of course, last season, and only secured their status, what was it, the penultimate match, that victory over Crystal Palace. Frank Lampard's been chatting, as you can imagine, as he looks to take on his former side as Chelsea heads to Goodison Park. Ahead of this match, Lampard's been talking about keeping his team focused on the task in hand.
The game that's ahead of you is always the most important one, and to get ahead of that for us would be taking your eye off the ball, which is the next game, and that's exactly what I'm doing, and it's exactly what I'll tell the players and the squad to do, and our fans. Let's focus on Chelsea and trying to make a really good atmosphere as we managed to make last year in the running. It was something that was incredible, and then the players' part of the bargain is to play with passion and try and win football matches.
Okay, so Frank Lampard, it's a reset for them. It's a start again. It's his first summer that he's had with his squad, and he has had a number of, 2 players come in, hasn't he? In the sense of James Tarkowski, Dwight McNeil as well.
Signed a few players from teams that have been relegated.
Yeah.
Not that they're not bad players. They're both really,
Well, one was a free transfer, and that was Tarkowski, and McNeil, there was a price to be paid for him. So as I say, 2 players coming in. We know the financial constraints that they find themselves in. Are Everton going to be another relegation?
Yeah, when it ended last season, they survived. To me, straight away, it's just going to be just as tough next year. There is no bright horizon for them. I don't see enough activity. And yes, you could say, well, they spent loads and loads of money and they've got nothing to really show for it, which is true. But that team, if you put it on paper, and Calvert-Lewin was a big miss for him last year, but he wasn't fit. Even when he came back, he was off the pace. And that come at a price because he lost a little bit of belief, which is natural because he didn't score as often as he was used to. It isn't the Calvert-Lewin that, I don't know, 2 years ago started the Premier League season brilliantly and looked like he was going to challenge Harry Kane at one time.
I was going to say.
That's a long way away at the moment. The lad suffered an enormous amount of injuries in a short period of time.
For a while, they've looked a little disjointed. The hope that I'm sure Frank Lampard was trying to impress there is that it's about building unity within the squad. Because at times it's even building unity with the fans, because at times we saw the fans and the anger the fans had towards the board, for example. Now, they did come together when the fans were needed to support the team because they were in that relegation battle. But what I was going to ask you is, you mentioned there Dele Alli could play as the false number 9. How big a season could this be for Dele Alli? Because
I don't know now.
His career has sort of sidetracked for quite a number of seasons now.
Well, I can't think of anybody that's had a bigger slide down in his career than Dele Alli, because I remember watching him at Wembley in the Champions League and thinking, wow, he's got everything in front of him. And it just seems to have gone on this slippery slide. He's been on the front pages more than the back. He's frustrated managers, and more than one of them. Frankie Lampard's brought him to Everton hoping to try and reignite his career. Hasn't really got started. Hope he's had a big pre-season, that he's got himself in the best physical condition he can be. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to be like, because he's got to earn the rights now. He's got to earn his stripes to be in that team, because he's not played to the level expected of what we all know he's capable of. The one bright horizon for Everton is Anthony Gordon, who's a really bright talent, loads of energy, loads of drive. The Evertonians played a big part in keeping them up last year, because Frank Lampard spoke about the atmosphere, and towards the end of the season they got over the line. By hook or by crook, they managed it. That was a team that could easily have gone last season. And I don't see much on the horizon from at the moment. There's only a few bright lights, and Anthony Gordon would be one of them.
Yeah. It's fascinating. You mentioned the atmosphere. I was at the Everton, I was at both the FA Cup game and the Premier League game at Goodison when Brentford were the visitors. They blew us away in the FA Cup. The Premier League game, I have not experienced an atmosphere like that pre-match, sitting in my seat or waiting.
Coming to the games, with the buses coming,
of course,
it's just rocking.
I've even forgotten about that, because the fans came together. They knew they had a job to do. But like I say, Goodison Park was absolutely rocking. It was quite intimidating as a Brentford fan being there. The problem was that once Brentford got back into the game, the team themselves crumbled.
Capitulated,
that was the issue that they had. And I thought Frank Lampard was a bit slow to make his substitutions in that game to try and win it, because if they'd won that game, they would have secured their status, but that wasn't to be the case. And actually Brentford went on to win it pretty comfortably. But that's going to be the key as well for fans to once again make it as intimidating as it can be, because it's not a pleasant place at times.
No, and it feels like the players, some of them, the weight on their shoulders of the expectation at Everton and the fans, I think it come at a bit of a price for them. It'd be interesting to see his line-up today, because they have a number of players out. Decore and Iwobi in midfield, not bad. I thought Decore would be a big player for Everton over the 2 or 3 year period, and not quite. Had moments, but not quite.
I was going to say, he started off well.
Yeah, he's had some decent moments. I'm not saying he's not played brilliantly well, but they paid a big fee for him. But every player they've paid a big fee for is nearly not worked out. It's just not worked out as much as they would have liked, that's for sure.
Game Day Breakfast with Natalie Sawyer and Tony Cascarino. Saturday mornings from 6 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.